Okay, good morning again. This is Wandering Through the Big Book session number 21, and we made it through the doctor's opinion, Bill's story. There is a solution, more about alcoholism and we agnostics. So we're up to chapter 5, how it works. And what we're going to do this morning is read the original manuscript. And I put in the email ways to find that. It's in the study guide. And but if you didn't, just you can follow along in the big book, and then you'll particularly note when the words have been slightly changed. So just to explain this original manuscript, I'm going to read from what it says in the place where I found this. The following is the 5th chapter, How It Works, from the original manuscript of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was this version that was distributed to friends and colleagues of the fellowship's founders to get comments and suggestions on what to change before sending it to the printer. So there is a book published by Hazelden that is photographs of this original manuscript with all the edits that were put onto it as people took a look at it. And it's really a remarkable document. They used different colors as people were going through at different times, and they changed some words, and you see it. You see this original manuscript, and then you see words crossed down and something different. And so part of what I'm hoping to do this morning, beside entering into the details of how it works and step 3, is to discuss the difficulty in doing something like this. Any of you that have been to a business meeting of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know we spend hours talking about nothing and then deciding nothing. It can be a difficult situation. So imagine these guys trying to write our founding document, our constitutional document, and they're trying to get agreement, and we don't have a whole lot of history. So the fact that the book was written at all, I believe, is a miracle. And I have this is something. This is called writing the big book. It's 700 something pages of fine print with footnotes, and I haven't read it. I've skimmed through it, but one of the very interesting things you find out is that Hank Parkhurst was very involved in the writing of this thing, and Bill wrote it in the order that it's presented, except that he didn't write chapters 5 that we're dealing with now and chapter 6 into action. He wrote them at the end, not in the middle where they were. And when he's writing the first part of the book, he hadn't even written the steps, so that in the first part of the book, they never say we're at step 1 here or we're at step 2. When you get to how it works, it starts saying now we are at step 3, now we are at step 4, so on and so forth. And then at the end, it doesn't always say step 12. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But remember that everything after, in this interpretation of the steps, everything after chapter 6 into action is step 12. It's about taking this new way of living into the world that we're living in, and how to deal with wives, then families, then the employer, and finally a vision for you. That's the last chapter of that part. So this is interesting. I hope you'll find it interesting. And I know I'm going to go off at certain points, but to appreciate the struggle they had writing the book, as well as the information that's involved here. And so technically speaking, we have been through the first part of the book, which is largely, step 1 is largely about defining the disease of alcoholism, defining it from a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint, and a spiritual standpoint. And then we move into we agnostics, which is literally about agnosticism, about having doubt about the God thing, or about not having enough experience of the God thing to know that is the solution. That's the, I think I said before, when you come in here, you think alcohol is your problem. And then you find out as you go along that alcohol was not my problem. Alcohol was my solution. That's how I was solving every problem that I had in my life. And then you find out that your real problem is God. And then as you go along through this thing, you find that, well, God's not your problem. God's your solution. So it's been, at least for me, it's been, I did not come in here wanting or seeking a relationship with God. I would tell you I believed in God, but I sure didn't want a relationship with God, and when page 68 says, we are in this world to play the role God assigns. And if you're taking this approach to the book where you're saying every sentence in the book is the truth of their experience, is it the truth of my experience? And if my answer is no, that's not the truth of my experience, the next question is, well, do I want it to be the truth of my experience? And if the answer to that is yes, then the next question is, well, am I willing to do what they said they did to get this experience? And if my answer to that is no, then the next thing is, well, am I willing to pray for the willingness? Which in my mind takes confirmation first that my higher power does want me to do whatever this is. So on page 68, it's going to say at some point, we are in this world to play the role God assigns. Turn that into a question. Am I here, wherever it is that you are, to play the role that that my Creator has assigned me? And if you're like me, I'm trying I'm trying now on a daily basis to ask, what is that role? And we ask through the 10th step question that we read earlier, how can I best serve thee? The book says that's what's supposed to be on my mind all the time. How can I best serve thee? Not how can you best serve me, which is my question. How can you give me what I think I want and need? I don't want to get myself off here. So am I in this world to play the role God assigns? And I would say that the heart of step 11 actually is praying only for knowledge of God's will for me. And then I get the power, I can claim the power to carry that out. Well, is that any different than praying only for knowledge of God's role for my life? We're going to deal, I'm not even getting into this thing so far, but the first thing we're going to deal with is this notion of honesty. And the question that is going to come up is, do I think I created myself? Do I think I created myself? My answer to that has been, well, I don't know. There are some parts of me, my mind and my body, I definitely can have an effect on. I can decide what food to put in my mouth, what words to put in front of my eyes, who to interact with, who not to interact with. It's interesting talking about choice, because I would have told you I was choosing to drink, but I wasn't. I had to drink. I didn't have any choice about drinking. By the time it becomes a habit and my only solution. And I honestly will tell you, I don't think I can choose to drink today. I don't think I have a choice about drinking now either. But so did I create myself? Well, I'm hoping the answer is yeah, because then I can do whatever I want, right? If I created myself, I get to do what I want. And I don't want to think God created me. Because then, then I better check in with God to see, well, why am I here? What is it that you want me to do? And I don't want to do what anybody else tells me to do. And the biggest confusion for me comes between the body and the mind and the spirit. Okay, so with regard to the body and the mind, I do have the power to make some choices, whether I'm making them consciously or unconsciously, and I experience the effect of those choices. But I believe I have a soul. I believe that there are two parts to me. You know, my little medallion says, "To thine own self be true." And right away I'm going, well, which self is that? Because I've always felt I have two selves. I have a body and mind that's running my show, frankly. And but I'm aware that I have a soul. And now that I'm as old as I am, it's finally dawning on Marblehead that I have spent an entire lifetime investing in my body and my mind. And my body and my mind have an expiration date. Do not use beyond something. I don't know what that date is. I know I'm a whole lot less afraid of that date today than I used to be. But and I'm now trying to listen for why my soul is here. And there are a bunch of books we could talk about that talk about the reality of the soul and the soul's game plan. The soul comes into a human incarnation with a game plan, a learning agenda, and incorporates other beings as part of that learning plan. And some of these lessons are very, very tough. I'm getting off and getting further along and haven't even gotten to the start of this thing, but I just want to say, so I know I can decide how long my fingernails are going to be or how long my hair is going to be, although I can't decide to be bald. I didn't get to make that decision, but when it comes to my soul, I do not have a clue. I do not have a clue. I know I didn't create my soul. And the work for me now is trying to switch my identification from being obsessed and self-centered with regard to my mind and my body to allowing my soul to do what it came here to do, which I believe is God's will for me. And I don't know what is. So any rate, let's see. So I want to get to honesty. So I think the best thing is to start reading this thing. Okay, so this is the original manuscript of chapter 5. If you don't have it in front of you, you're going to see it in the big book, and then you'll see the words that are differently. It starts out, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our directions. Doesn't say path, it says directions. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. You know, it's simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. Usually, men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a way of life which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So I was in a profession that was based on honesty. It was if you did not have, you were seeking honesty, and we were trained in confidentiality too. Two very important things. And I came in here to Alcoholics Anonymous at the advanced age of 63. And I would have told you I was honest. I don't have any problem with honesty. That's not going to be my problem. And it literally took all the work that we do in the resentment inventory and the fear inventory and the sex conduct inventory, which is, at least for me, more about selfishness in my human behavior. And it's not about sex, it's about my interaction with other human beings in the human world. And through that work, and particularly through the ability to talk with another human being about it. I heard recently, I was at a men's retreat. I just hadn't heard this before, but the sponsor is getting with the sponsee to do step 5, and he sets up a third chair. So there's sponsor, sponsee, and this third chair. And sponsee's going, somebody else coming? You know? And sponsor goes, no, that's just for God. That's God's seat. God's going to be here with us as we go through this, because it says, you know, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. I thought that was pretty cool. I've never done that. Okay, so I think there is a direct connection between sanity and honesty. I think dishonesty is the same as insanity. And, you know, this book, where if we ever get to it, it's going to say most of us are extreme examples of self-will run riot, and we don't think so. Now, is that honest? You know, if they're stating we are extreme examples of self-will run riot, followed by we don't think so. You know, did you think you were an extreme example of self-will run riot when you came in here? I doubt you're going to say, oh yeah, I knew that. Maybe you will. I don't know. I sure didn't. In fact, I had a lot of trouble with that second part of the first step, that our lives had become unmanageable. And, you know, right away in step 2, they're saying it's not just believing in God. It's believing that this power that we give a name of God can restore us to sanity, whatever sanity means. Well, I'm telling you, for me, it means restore me to honesty. And I have to go through all the work of step 4, the 3 different inventories, to understand how dishonest I've been. I thought I knew what I was doing. The hallmark of my drinking, I'm no dummy. You know, I could prove that to you. And I love it when people say, nobody's too dumb to get this program, because that's the truth. Nobody is too dumb to get this program. There are oodles of people that are way too smart to get this program. So caught up in our intellectual judgments and opinions about our lives that we can't see the truth. We can't see the truth that we are extreme examples of self-will run riot, and we don't think so. Dang. You know, I meant to say one of the things that I heard early was that there were at least 3 forms of dishonesty. One is I specifically give you false information because I want some sort of, I'm trying to make something happen out of that. 2 is I deliberately withhold true information right? So there's dishonesty by telling you a lie, and there's another dishonesty by not telling you the truth. But the third one is the one, and I can't do that. I get if I tell a lie, which I've done, of course, I get red-faced and all squirrely. I haven't been able to lie very well. But the third form is I'm lying to myself. And the lie I told myself is I know what I'm doing. I carefully avoided Alcoholics Anonymous for a half a century. A half a century. I didn't want to I was so dependent on the feelings that I would get from alcohol that, yeah, I was exactly that, eventually we can't imagine going on drinking, and we can't imagine not drinking. Literally cannot imagine it. That was me. So I couldn't even, it was just like when I finally, did a third step on my knees with a sponsor, and then balked at coming up with a resentment list for a year and a half. And which means I really didn't do I wasn't through step 3, but he kept saying, I'm just asking for a list. That's what we begin with, a list. I had resentment. My life was full of resentment. I finally, first I do a timeline. I try to get on paper all these. Finally, I just went through my phone book, right? Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. Just looking through names and, putting half the phone book on the list. I don't want to get off again. Okay. So I'm going to say, for me, the fundamental problem is I am not honest about my life. And that goes through to everything from I know what I'm doing when I, quote, choose to take a drink. I could stop if I want to, all the lies that we tell ourselves about it. But the most fundamental lie I told myself is my life is about my body and my mind. My soul's not part of this deal. My life is about my body and my mind, and I'm identified with my body and my mind, and I think I created myself. So I can do what I want. I don't have to check in with whatever you're calling it to see why am I here. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is to tie dishonesty and insanity, or honesty, insanity. And I'm just going to mention, before I forget, there's this wonderful little thin book called Big Book Awakening. It may be hard to find. Several things that we're going to talk about come from this website, thejaywalker.com. A wonderful website full of information, and these are the people that wrote this book, and it's about big book sponsorship and how to mark up your big book to be in accordance with what they did. And so this worksheet, this says resentment inventory, and it does this, and this is in the study guide. This is in the study guide. It's right available on that website, WTTBB. By the way, there is a website called WTTBP. It stands for Welcome to the Black Parade. So if you wind up at Welcome to the Black Parade, you just plain put in a P instead of a B. So the website, WTTBB, wandering through the big book.com. Homepage, you'll see something says study guide. You click on study guide, you'll see 15 PDFs, and everything that we're talking about is going to be tied to this study guide, so you can see it in print if you want to. And this will be part of the step 4 resentment work. Step 4 is 3 different PDFs. There's one on resentment, one on fear, and one on sex conduct. And just out of interest, the first line underneath resentment inventory, this line right here, says, God, please help me see the truth about my resentments. You know, right from the get-go, these guys are saying, you're lying to yourself about resentment. You know, my lie is, I am unhappy, but it is not my fault. It is your fault. If you would behave differently, I could be happy. My second lie is, here's a really good idea. I'm going to hate on you, and you're not going to want that happening. So you're going to ask yourself, why does Jack seem so mad at me and unhappy with me? And then you will examine your behavior. You will see the error of your ways, and you will change. And you know what? Then you'll be happier. I'm going to be happier, and the world will be a better place thanks to the power of resentment. That's the lie I told myself. So what this is saying is, Jackie boy, you are an extreme example of self-will run riot. You don't think so. So you're going to have to ask this spiritual power called God to help you see the truth about your resentments. A lie I've been telling myself all my life is, if I can just get everything okay out there, I can feel okay in here. I've been trying to feel okay in here all my damn life. And the only time I get to feel okay, and it says it right in those opening words, if I will humbly rely on God and behave the way I think God wants me to behave, I will be enabled. I will get the power, because lack of power is my dilemma. I can think it, but I can't make it happen. We can wish to be moral. We can wish to be philosophically comforted, and we can't make it happen. Lack of power is our dilemma. We've got to get in contact with this power. We call it conscious contact. And then we go to work improving conscious contact. You probably hear more often than you want to, the real start of work in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is 10, 11, and 12 every day. We're doing all this other stuff so we can get to 10, 11, and 12 every day. 10 is the pause, 11 is the asking and listening, and 12 is the doing in accordance with what we hear when we're listening. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to follow directions. That's what they said. At some of these you may balk. At all of these you may balk. You may think you can find an easier, softer way. We doubt if you can. You know, one of the big shifts in this, how it works from this manuscript to our book, is they changed it all to we. They changed it from you to we. At some of these you may balk. You may think you can find an easier, softer way. We doubt if you can, with all the earnestness at our command. What a statement that is. With all the sincerity I can muster, I beseech you. You know, I love the line about, if what we have learned and seen and felt means anything at all. Can you imagine if all this work means anything at all? And it goes on to say, all of us, no matter what, can have this relationship with God as soon as we are honest, open, and willing enough to try. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. And then here's the problem. Here's the obstacle to peace. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. What stands between me and the peace and love and power of God are all my old ideas in here about what my life is about, what I'm about, what I need and what I fear and what I want. And in my case, it's worse. I can't let them go. I'm trying to prove they're right. You tell me to let go and let God. I'm trying to take, no, I'm trying to prove this. I got it. I can do this thing. My self-reliance can bring me a good life. I don't need your stinking God. I don't want to be told what to do. And I had to drink to get away from the underlying tension. Page 68 says this amazing thing. We put our fears down on paper. We asked ourselves why we had them. And then it explains why we fear. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? I've been stuck in my self-reliance for 63 years, trying to prove that it works, that I'm smarter than the average bear. And deep down, I know I'm lying. Deep down, I know my self-reliance fails me over and over again and again. And because my self-concept is rooted in my self-reliance and my wanting to be competent, I can't let them go. I have to pray for removal. One of the most powerful things in here as a spiritual tool is we have this prayer for removal. I haven't found it anywhere else in the spiritual writing I've done. And I'm deep into these guys that were 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, Thomas à Kempis, St. Ignatius, St. Francis de Sales is the latest one. It's just amazing stuff these guys were saying 400, 500, 600 years ago about the human calamity and how to solve the human calamity. And what this is trying to say is it's all going to come down to the single word honesty. Step 10 says this amazing thing. It says, once you've got this conscious contact, once we're not lying or manipulating or anything about the God thing, your next function, your job, your primary purpose is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for my lifetime. Oh, God. You kidding me? I want to get my AA degree and go on and have a great life. Continue for my lifetime? 10, 11, and 12 every day the rest of my life? Please. I think I'll go to Walmart. So it's always about that, it's about mental understanding and then about physical behavioral effectiveness. Those two components. And what we're trying to do is shift from going to self-reliance to drive our behavior, to give us our understanding and to drive our behavior. We're trying to go to spiritual guidance to both guide and power our behavior. The importance of B. No human power is going to relieve our alcoholism. It's huge. There are a lot of people somewhere in the steps that probably have not acknowledged the truth of that. It's a form of dishonesty, right? I'm not being honest about the fact that no human power is going to bring me what I'm telling you I want or need. What's human power? Well, that's the body and the mind. That's either stuff or concept. And this is talking about a whole different, the spiritual realm. Last week we were talking about three levels of miracles, 3 degrees of miracles. And the first one is a physical miracle. You know, the physical miracle is I am not thinking about drinking, and that's all I ever thought about for some period of time. And I know I didn't do it. It just comes. That's the miracle of it. It's a 10th step promise, page 85. Second level of miracle is a mental miracle. It's on page 50. The consciousness of the presence of God in my life is the most important fact of my life. Whew. Really? And I can say that today. I don't think I could have said it even 2 years ago. I don't know. My consciousness of the presence of God in my life is the most important fact of my life. And yet, you know what? I can't say anything beyond that. I can't define it, explain it, describe it. I mean, I can, but it's the most important fact of my life, and that's about all I can say. I'm saying that's a mental miracle. And then there's a third one, and it's in the 5th step promises. We will feel as though we are on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Whoa. Not only is this the most important fact of my life, now I'm walking hand in hand. You know, this was written, they didn't have interstates, right? There were no broad highways as we think of them today, without stoplights, and really going somewhere without obstacles, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. We're not getting very far. Okay, remember that you are dealing with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for you. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. You must find him now. How about that for a suggestion? Right? This is only suggestions. You hear that all the time. I choose to follow your suggestions. You know, that doesn't sound like a suggestion to me. It's actually a suggested program of recovery. It's not a bunch of suggestions. It's a bunch of requirements and musts. But it's a suggested program if you choose to make a 3rd step decision to treat your disease along the lines that these people talked about. I was hoping to get to my favorite line, and we're not going to make it, but half measures will avail you nothing. You stand at the turning point, throw yourself. Throw yourself under God's protection and care with complete abandon. You know, this is the exact kind of sentence that they had to do that spiritual appendix. Because I don't know about you, I've never done this with complete abandon. You know, I've done it gradually, step by step, and my spiritual awakening has been very gradual. I'm glad for that. No, that's another topic. But they had to put in that. Don't let a thing like this keep you from trying this stuff. That's my point. You know, if you say to, well, I can't do that. I can't throw myself under God's protection and care with complete abandon. So I'm not even going to get going. That's why they had to write that spiritual appendix to say, whoa, hold it. You know, we use some absolute terms. Half measures will avail you nothing. You got to give it full. You got to go to any length or nothing good's going to happen. I mean, it's true in a way, and it gradually becomes more true, but don't use it as an excuse to not try to do this stuff. That's the important thing. Now we think you can take it. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as your program of recovery. I'm dying to get to the line. I just take you to it, so I won't be fussy. But It's on page 60, and our description of the alcoholic, chapter to the agnostic, our personal adventures before and after have been designed to sell you three pertinent ideas. A, that you are alcoholic and cannot manage your own life. B, that probably no human power can relieve your alcoholism. C, that God can and will. If you're not convinced on these vital issues, let's see. If you're not convinced on these vital issues, you ought to reread the book to this point, or else throw it away. Right? I mean, it's true. You know, if you're not willing to engage in these possibilities, there's no point going on. You know, there are a lot of sponsors, if they can't get you through a third step decision, well, that's all I can do. You know, go find somebody else. I don't want to just sit here for an hour and talk about your life. Okay, so it's time to stop, with the exception. I'm just going to read a couple of these steps, because they changed a few things. So they're basically soft pedaling. Get that for sure. You know, they're backing up. I mean, Bill writes this stuff, and he writes it in an altered state, and it's really quite a story around that itself. And he's working off these steps that the Oxford groups had. They weren't really steps as much as fairly, not vague directions, but they were just their ideas that were all this kind of stuff. 1, admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I'm suggesting add the word honesty. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care and direction of God as we understood God. Physical care for our well-being and mental direction. They took out and direction. I don't know why. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. I'm still working on that, you know. That's an imposing question. I like to be exact, and I definitely do not like to be wrong. So you throw a question like that to me, and I'm screwed. What's the exact nature of my wrongs? And things I've come up with so far is, well, I'm an extreme example of self-will run riot, and I don't think so. That's the exact nature of my wrongs. I try to justify my own thinking. I believe my own thinking. How about that? I believe my own that's the exact nature of my wrongs. I believe my own thinking, and then I act on it. I don't know. Okay. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. That's how we get to honesty. By honestly looking at our resentment, our fear, and our sense of remorse around our selfish behavior. That's how we get to honesty. We get restored to sanity and spiritual health by doing 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. But 4 and 5 is about honesty. We're entirely willing that God remove all these defects of character. That's a little bit stronger. Then get this one. 7, humbly on our knees. Asked God to remove our shortcomings, holding nothing back. You know, I love the step up of the 7-step prayer from the 3rd step prayer. I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I'm not judging myself anymore. I pray that you remove whatever's in the way of me being useful to you and my fellows, not in the way of my serenity. Humbly on our knees, asked him to remove our shortcomings, holding nothing back, made a list of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make complete amends to them all. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our contact. They added the word conscious, and it's an important thing, and we'll talk about it later, next time maybe, but it's a term from Emmett Fox. And the wonderful thing about conscious contact is it implies unconscious contact. It means that I am, Carl Jung had this sign, bidden or unbidden, over his office door. Bidden or unbidden, God is present. Whether you agree or not, whether you acknowledge it or not, God is present. That's unconscious contact when God is present, but you're ignoring it. Praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And then 12, having had a spiritual experience, not awakening, but experience as the result of this course of action, we tried to carry this message to others, especially alcoholics, and that practice these principles in all their affairs. Okay, that's it for today. We're going to continue with that next week, and then we're going to take a break for a couple of weeks, and I'm going to stop this recording, and we'll have some open discussion. Thank you very much for being here. Let's see.